Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. We will get started in just a minute. We'll just wait to let everybody get logged in. We're seeing the numbers climb like crazy though, so good to have you all on here, and we'll get started in just a second. And just a note, as always, while we're waiting to let everybody in, if you have questions right out of the gate, please feel free to add them to the question pane of GoToWebinar. We can start looking at them right away. So we'll talk more about what that means. If this is your first time, no worries. But those of you who are seasoned veterans, feel free to add into that question pane while we're giving it just a minute to get everybody in here. All right, the numbers are continuing to climb, but I'll get us going because there's quite a large group on now, so I don't want to make you guys wait, and we will just, anybody that joins us along the way, that is a great thing too. So once again, welcome to this month's AutoCAD Electrical User Community virtual webinar series, our virtual user group, all the many things that we call it. Office hours, it's been often called as well. So I'm happy to have you all here, excited to chat with you guys today. I am Tiffany Bachmeier. I lead the manufacturing consulting team for the Americas, but today I am wearing my AutoCAD Electrical SME hat, as I do every month, and here to answer any questions that you guys have, beginner, intermediate to advanced, around AutoCAD Electrical. I am also joined by esteemed colleagues from Autodesk. Matt Durst, who is on my team, he is also a vault expert, is here to help me run through any of your questions, manage all of the different things that we get within our question pane, and also here to answer any of your vault questions. So Matt, I don't know if you want to say hi to everybody.
Yeah. Hello, everyone, and glad to be here. Always exciting to be a part of this. We do this every month, and we always have a pretty good turnout, a lot of good questions. So appreciate you guys being here. Thank you.
Thank you. We couldn't do it without you, Matt. I mean, and I think for anybody who's been on here in the past, you guys have been seeing, we've been getting a flood of more connected workflow discussions between Vault and Electrical. So it is really exciting to have Matt on the call and doing that for us. I am also joined by one of our leaders of all of these programs, which we are so excited to have him on. Anton, I don't know if you want to say hi to everybody, but he helps us bring all of these things to you all, imperative to this, this whole program, and also helps me run through all of these questions. So Anton, I don't know if you want to say hi.
Yeah, hey everyone, and welcome to the webinar. We are working with the extended audience today, so it's good to have all of you here today. So I will be on and off, but I will help to handle any questions besides, AutoCAD Electrical in Inventor domain or anything like that. So I will try to pick as many as possible. Thank you for joining.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So with that, little housekeeping for anybody who's not been on here before, and welcome if you are brand new, and obviously welcome to my veterans too. We typically, it's very open forum. There have been times we brought topics to you, like whenever there's a new release, I typically do a what's new and go through some of those things. But recent months, we've actually been having such a bigger uptick in amount of numbers of people joining that we are spending a lot more time right in the product talking through questions and things like that. So that is probably what we're going to do again today, unless something pops up that pivots us. But for the most part, we are here to answer those questions, and that's really what this is for. The way we do this is through the question pane of GoToWebinar, as you heard me say earlier. So please feel free to submit those questions in there. they will either be answered on there if it's something quick that we can, like asking for a link to something like that, that Anton and Matt will help me get in there. Obviously, everything else we typically try to do live. So we will be managing that, looking through it, walking through it. If we feel that we need a little bit more explanation, we may ask you to come off mute and feel free to share your microphone and kind of ask that question live. And in fact, if it's something that you'd like to share and share your screen, I'm happy to do that too. So just those couple housekeeping things. If you're not comfortable coming off of mute, you're welcome to tell us that back in the question pane, or if you don't have a microphone, we have that every now and then where people can't do that. But I'm assuming we're all probably a little bit more set up at our home offices now, as we've all been going through this very very transformational time in our world history of all of us pretty much being in our home offices and having to figure out how to get that whole crazy setup going on. I know I'm in month 4 of this. I think probably everybody is. So always interesting times and interesting discussions. So like I said, feel free, if you want to share your microphone, if you even want to ask, like I have a question, but I want to ask it live, or I want to share my screen, just put that in the question pane and we'll make sure that we unmute you and give you that presenter control too. All right, so with that, let's take a look. Do we have anything coming in right now?
Yeah, we do. We have a few questions.
Okay.
I think a good question here, Tiffany, are you running your class this year at AU? So I know community voting had just ended, I think on the 13th this week. So speakers will be notified of their classes in August at that time, but I believe you did submit a class, yes, Tiffany?
I did indeed. I'll tell you guys though, I only submitted one this year with the, I know in the past years, for instance, last year I had 5 AutoCAD Electrical classes. This year I only did the one, and just because we're very likely to get a wider audience than we have in the past, due to the fact that it is online. So if anybody didn't know that, we are doing AU virtually this year. Because we're going to get a wider audience, I actually went about exploring doing a basically, I've done it before at AUs, but this was my main focus, was a getting to know AutoCAD Electrical, what it is for people who are looking to make the migration from AutoCAD to AutoCAD Electrical. So it's really much more of a beginner's class than a lot of my classes in the past have been. Just because I was hoping to capture that wider audience that may be looking to have somebody explain to them from a more exploratory standpoint what they might be able to achieve. So that's the one that I did. And then I do have the user community. We will be doing something with this group as a part of AU. We don't have that fully fleshed out yet, but much like we had everybody meet live in Vegas to be able to have this normally virtual meetup, but a live meetup, we're going to be doing something special, something to make it a little different, even though it's all virtual, still something a little different than what we do today. So more to come on that, but thanks for that question, Mark. We're excited about AU. I think it's going to be a really interesting new platform. If you guys haven't heard a ton about it, the content is going to be, the plan right now is more of a pre-recorded content, so that you can watch it and consume it when needed, unlike when we're all running from room to room in Las Vegas. And then being able to have an office hours, an open office hours, much like this, where you can meet with the speakers to be able to ask any questions you have open dialogue, which I actually think is pretty exciting, because we often run out of time for that kind of stuff at the end of a lot of our AU classes. So to be able to have a much more interactive session, and I don't know exact times on those, but I'm pretty excited about what that might be able to open up for discussions and things like that. It's like having lots of round tables, which I love. I love that aspect. So thanks for that question.
Yeah, that was I think a good one to kick things off. Darian asks, for a panel modification, can you pull only new cables for a cable from to the report?
Yeah, absolutely. So in our reporting tools, and let me just go ahead and start sharing my screen here. Oh, I have to be made a presenter. Hold on. I have to do that for myself. Let's do this. I don't know why this always happens for me. All right.
Yeah, you should have it now, Tiffany.
I do. Yep. I did it for myself too. I think we were probably all simultaneously doing it. All right. Do you guys see my screen? Do you see AutoCAD Electrical?
Yes.
And Matt, I guess I'm asking you because,
Yep.
because you're off mute. All right. Good deal.
Yep.
Thank you. So whenever we were to go into our reporting tools, and we were to go in specifically to what you're asking for, Darian, on a panel report, and actually, I think you said panel, but you were asking specifically for a cable from to report. So those are actually found under the schematic reporting tools, just as a little housekeeping thing. But if you were to go to this cable from to, so remember that, and if you were to do it project wide, all reports are 100% customizable. So this is good just for everybody to know, is just a little bit of a housekeeping thing on reports. So depending on how all of our reports are done, especially from the from to standpoints of the wire from to or the cable from tos, you choose location codes that you want to report that from and to for. So if you do everything, which is just what I'm choosing right now, and you can make lots of different combinations, my question for you would be, how are you designating new? Because you could filter and sort by that. So if you're dealing with like a brownfield type project where it's an existing project, but you're adding new things to it and you just want to see what's been newly added, I would ask you that we could absolutely create that, but how are you designating that in the drawing? Because there's not really a stop point on the drawings that would be able to say, you've added this new since yesterday, right? So we would have to have a designator somewhere, like perhaps you add an extra attribute that says new, and you could toggle that new on, and then when you go into changing the report format, you could choose what you want to see on here, and then anything new you could filter by anything that's just new. Also slightly easier might be doing it more from a cable summary standpoint, and then you could run that particular report. Maybe you make it a location code. The location code is actually called new. Or if you want to keep your locations, if you use them often, but you make installation code the difference between blank and new, and then you could use that to filter on. So both of those have those options, though. Just something to think about, something that you might be able to run where you're thinking about it. It's definitely possible. I definitely think you could do it. It's just more of a question of how you're approaching it, because the software itself doesn't have a marking point for you to say report on only things added since July 15th, 2020. So it would just be all about how you decide to designate that, but absolutely you can run any report you want.
Yeah, and Tiffany, Darian adds a couple things. I don't really have a way to designate, but I constantly have to modify existing panels. And then he also says, I like the attribute option, so thank you.
Okay, good deal. Yeah, and just for everybody to know that installation and location codes are a great way to filter reports by anything you have. So most customers that I work with typically only use one, they don't use both. So, and we can talk more if everybody is interested around what truly the installation and location codes were designed for, but I'll tell you what, location code I truly use for the sense of the location. Where is it located? It's junction box 1, it's main cabinet 3, it's whatever, operator station XYZ, whatever you want that to be, I typically use the location code for that. Installation code becomes this really amazing opportunity to use that for anything else I might want to filter on. So it doesn't have to be so specific as the installation location within the general location code, like it's operator station 3 and it's this specific area of that. You don't have to do that. You could instead use it for exactly this. So you might be able to search on either blanks that could be old, right? Or new, if you wanted to call it new, and then that be your installation code so that you have a way to filter all things new that you're editing. That could be components, wires, cables, all of it. The other flip side of that is you could have a designator called old or existing, and that goes on it, and then anything new is just blank. So anything with blanks comes on. And that could be a way, and just so you know, Darren, just to add a little bit more clarity to this, you could do some interesting things with our tools. These are some of my favorite tools for project-wide updating. There's this find, edit, replace component text. So if you were to look at your full project, and you can do this under wire text too, but if you look for like any installation code and you find anything that said new, and you actually need to flip that now to blank or to old or existing, however you want to do it, you could do that and then start new, that you have everything that you're now working on are going to be called the new item. So you can continually update that project wide to make sure that you're not missing something on a one-by-one basis. So you could be done with a project and say, okay, I know all of this is existing, and just replace all existing installation codes with existing. And then as you start new on making edits to it, you will only have to mark the ones that are newly added with that new designator, and you know that everything else will get filtered out of it because you've already done this project-wide update on all those installation codes with existing. So lots of ways to do that. One of the other things that I think could be interesting, although I'm not sure how well you would use it for running your own report, but getting a sense of what you have. We have a tool called Mark Verify that I love seeing where people have made edits to the drawings with. So I find this tool very helpful for that. It's here under the project tab. And what it allows you to do is, and it will look for changes made with electrical, AutoCAD or AutoCAD LT. And the beautiful part of that is if I'm sharing my drawing set with somebody else and I want to see what kind of things they did to it, perhaps I'm concerned they were a little bit of rogue AutoCAD electrical users and perhaps they did some exploding, which if any of you guys have taken my classes, you know is a huge no-no. Or maybe they maybe did some updates that I'm concerned that they maybe manually adjusted and now things aren't syncing or going to run right on the report. But outside of editing checks, it's also a great way just to see where people have made additions or removals to the project. So it will see any changes to the drawings, added, changed, copied, deleted, all of that as you're seeing in the little snippet on there. So this will tell you about anything new. So you could run a mark on everything up to the point of where you are, and then everything you're doing new, you could run that report to see everything new. I'm just not sure that particular report is going to give you necessarily your cable summary like you need it, but it could help you to see all new items. So a couple different options there, but hopefully that helps you.
Yeah, and Randy is joining us today. He also mentioned the Mark Verify tool might be helpful for finding.
Good deal. Thanks, Randy. Good. I got you. It's good. Good deal.
Okay, looks like we have a first-time attendee, so welcome, Hale. He's a brand new AutoCAD Electrical guy. What are some good resources for him to learn and ask questions? He took a first-level class, so now he's dangerous.
Well, good, Hal. That is fantastic. You did the first step. The first thing I would say is anybody starting out new, the best thing you can do for yourself is take a foundational course. Most essentials courses run 3 to 4 days. My very favorite ones, and not to be slightly biased, but these are the same kind of ones that I would run back when I was running electrical classes. I would run them as 4 days, and the first day would actually be an AutoCAD update day to make sure you're as up to speed in vanilla AutoCAD as possible, because there's a lot of things we bring from vanilla into electrical, and a lot of times, and this is not a bad thing, it's just the way of the world. Many of us learned AutoCAD in a very, hands-on, just do it, fight your way along it. And that can make us all highly skilled in it, but also in some ways, maybe not working in it in the most efficient ways or have missed some of the other productivity gains from it. And so I always tried to make sure that I taught all of my classes with that front end day to get everybody up to that speed to gain all of those efficiencies. And then I would go into three major days of training that really cover the core schematics, panel design. And when we say panel, we really just mean physical layout. It doesn't necessarily mean you're using an enclosure panel. Many of you have heard this anecdotally on these calls. I used to be in conveyor design before I was a consultant. And a lot of times that layout design, that panel that we would have within electrical would actually be the full conveyor and where we're laying out those devices on there. So panel just means, to the terms of AutoCAD Electrical, it just means your physical representation of your devices. So the training would take you through all those things in what I call the core productivity skills, which is being able to edit and modify your settings and configurations, being able to do catalog additions and subtractions and any edits that you need, being able to create symbols, and understanding our PLC tools. So those, I think, are all the categories. If your class, I don't know what the foundational class was that you took, if it didn't cover all of those things, I would say maybe go searching for that next level. And then my next advice would be to go out and look at a lot of the free content that's out there. I mean, all of the AU classes over the years that many electrical experts, myself included, Randy included, who was brought up on this call, and many of our colleagues have a wealth of knowledge out there from recorded AUs for years and years, things on best ways to implement it, best ways to get started, key tips and tricks to success of setting up your templates, all of those good things, and then down into advanced topics like automation and some of the other things that we have. So I would say start exploring that content, the AU content. There are good books out there. There are good training manuals out there if you want to be able to walk through them yourself. My favorite training manuals actually come out of a package called, it's a web forum, but it was originally based on the AOTC material that used to be made by Autodesk, and that's out of a web platform called My I Get It, or just I Get It, but it's myigetit.com. There are electrical classes in there that I think are super helpful to getting you going and have a lot of step-by-step walkthrough lessons that you can take. I know there are other web platforms that do that too. And obviously lots of books and things out there. So lots of different resources. Obviously come to these every month, and you'll gain, I think, more knowledge and understanding and just tips and tricks along the way. Hopefully that's always the goal. And welcome again, Hal. Great to have you on board and excited to have you as a part of the AutoCAD Electrical user community. It's an exciting thing.
All right, great. Michael asks, is this a community for Revit Electrical too? Or is that a different community?
Michael, great question. And we always tend to get some version of that question on all of these, and I'm really glad you asked it. This is not that. So I often get people from the AEC industry looking to utilize even AutoCAD Electrical. They see some of the benefits and they ask me, hey, can we use it for this? I typically steer people pretty far away from AutoCAD Electrical for that. There's a lot of ways to bend electrical into a lot of different industries, but when it comes to AEC, you're really far better suited to use AutoCAD MEP or the MEP tools out of Revit. And it sounds like you're already a Revit electrical user, and that's fantastic. We are not going to cover that. This is very specifically around AutoCAD Electrical. So thanks for asking it. Sorry to keep you on for the 20 minutes until we answered that question, but appreciate having you here. But it's, yeah, not for that. And for anybody else who's thinking about that from an AEC standpoint, just know that the intention of AutoCAD Electrical was really truly for manufacturing. It was around controls design. Now, again, we've bent it in a lot of ways. Randy could talk about it. You know, there are add-ins that go in for very specific usage within the utility industry in a lot of ways that we've been able to really utilize its power to do, no pun intended, to do that particular application. There's obviously many other applications across manufacturing that use this, but I typically, when it comes to AEC, I steer away from AutoCAD Electrical.
All right. We do have a question here on wiring diagram. How do we move a wire from a terminal to another one? Example, from terminal 5 moving to terminal 7.
So you just want to move it. Like you want, you know, if you were to have, I don't know, like you no longer want this particular terminal connecting to this device, you want to move it instead to this one. Is that the question? I guess maybe we want to open this up a little bit for more discussion, or if you can respond in the chat window, that'd be great. I mean, the move of a wire is quite simple. You can either redraw that wire from connecting to the things you want and just trim out the old wire. You can, I typically don't encourage this, but you can use the grips on here to adjust it, as long as you make sure you actually make a connection with a connection point on the device that is going to accept that as a wire. That would be a little bit of the cowboy rogueness of that I typically shy away from in electrical, but if you know what you're doing, you can do that successfully. It's very easy though to just jump to the wire command and make a connection between two other devices and trim out whatever you don't want. I guess I'm not sure if that's exactly the question you're asking, or if there's something deeper to it.
Yeah, I'm not seeing a follow-up here. Also,
Okay.
if you have a microphone, doesn't look like I'm getting the line through that there's no audio coming from the person that asked the question. So
okay,
maybe we can.
All right. Well, if they circle back, or if you want to write in there, we can circle back on that
Yep,
question.
yep.
Hopefully what I answered helps. So.
Okay, moving on. So how the automated wiring tags work? Is there any option to tag them horizontally only?
Okay, so great question. I'm guessing you're meaning perhaps when a vertical wire shows up, whether or not it comes in, if you don't label your horizontal wires, I'm making a little bit of an assumption, not sure if that's what you mean. Let's talk in general about what wiring capabilities there are though. So let's take a look at the drawing properties and let's look at our wire numbers. So in our wire number format, this is really the automatic section of the wire tags. So we have things within electrical called replaceable parameters. If you look that up actually in the help menu, it'll give you a list of all the replaceable parameters. If you've ever come to my electrical classes, I actually provide, and I have a pile of them because I actually came home with more of them than I anticipated this year. You'll actually see, and I'm not, let's see, I can't see my own camera. So you can actually see underneath here in this section, and I'm happy to share this with the whole user group if you guys want this little one sheeter. I give out laminated versions of it at AU, but I'm happy to share this with you. It's got tips and tricks and key things on electrical, but those replaceable parameters allow you to have the software automatically create those tags without you manually typing all of them. So we have things like the %N that you're seeing is the line reference number. You can add sheet to that. So if you wanted %S in there, that would be the sheet number plus the line reference number. When it comes to component tags, there's a %F on there for the family code. So for instance, a control relay would be a CR. And then there are other designators that you can pull from. There's a lot of different things from the software that you can utilize on that. We also have things, if you're not using sequential, which would just be allowing everything to go in a sequential order, if you're using line reference, and both of those fall under what the N means. So by you picking this dot, you're choosing what that N means. If you're using line reference, there's even a suffix setup for how it adds additional values across that same line. So when it comes to the format though, if you're dealing with the format that you're seeing on mine, which is a pretty US standard of vertical bus lines, horizontal rungs, then your placement of your wires is always going to be on the horizontal rungs, but you will still get a wire number somewhere on your vertical lines as well. Now you can hide those. So we can absolutely hide attributes and you can hide that wire number, but you can choose whether or not your wires are above the wire in line, which means they look like this. They create basically a break in the wire, but it's still a connected wire, or below. And you can even choose centered or offset and whether or not there's little leaders off of them. There's lots of options, but that's how automatic wire tagging happens. The other thing that I think is even more powerful that you don't see at a drawing level, but you see at the project level is if you go into the project properties, the wire numbers section here has a based on wire layer opportunity. So if you have special kinds of wires, perhaps maybe you're dealing with something like in an audio sense, and there are audio wires versus your standard wires versus, you're even seeing examples here of phasing, motor, and so on. You can have different wire number formats and tagging that is applied to each layer type so that you don't have to just have the end all be all of just this wire number format. You can specify that wire number format if you utilize this based off of layer name instead. So I find that to be pretty powerful too if you're trying to get a little bit more flexibility with your wire types. Hope that helped.
All right, we have another question here. Says new to electrical, but I'd like to know where I do my wire numbering. Is it on the model page or the paper one? If I copied the layout page, I'm confused with the model and layout pages. Does that make sense?
That is a great question, and not at all one that doesn't come without a bit of controversy. So really all the work that you do whenever you're drawing anything should be in model space. Paper space, the layout tab, is specifically for laying out your sheet of paper. Now, the reason I say there's controversy is that there are users of AutoCAD and AutoCAD Electrical that still 100% work only in model, and you will see, and even our own software, and I love it very dearly, ships still with a template, an AutoCAD Electrical template file that still includes the actual title block in model space. Any of you who know me, who have taken any of my classes, know that I am 100% against that. I fully believe you should be using paper space to laying out all of your drawings. So if you see on my drawing here, and let's just get rid of, this was an add-in that I just threw a report in there so people could see it. So I have a rectangle that shows me basically kind of a general location of where I want to keep my drawings, which is a lot of the argument for putting templates in model space so that you can see where you're drawing on. However, this is more D-size to me to be able to get the 1-inch line spacing that I want. Now, if my typical plot is actually on a B-size print, if I go to my layout tab, you'll see that this paper is actually set up to be exactly that. It's exactly how it's going to print on my plotter at a B-size format, so that 11 by 17. Now I have viewports, so anybody who knows standard model space and paper space working formats, you put a viewport into your title block, and that viewport allows you to access anything in model space and then scale it. So if you take a look at my particular viewport that I have, and I just grabbed, there we go. You can see down at the very bottom of my screen, if you can barely see it, it's at a 1:2 ratio. So I'm actually using scale. My scale on my title block would not say none, it would say 1:2. And you could actually put a scale ruler on it if you wanted to. Now, obviously, I know in schematics, we don't need that. But when we get out to a panel drawing, it starts becoming a little bit more important. So you can actually have this to scale in its plot format. And that's the beauty of this. So really your paper space, and by the way, everybody, whether you agree or disagree with me on how it's drawn or being able to use scales or not, setting up paper space will allow you to do a multi-sheet plot far cleaner and easier than trying to do that out of model space. So you will have a much better success rate of being able to send all of your drawings to a plotter or even to a PDF for plotting. It will all have the page setups in a much better format for you. And I know probably many of you are not loving the grid, and you can turn this off. It's just because I have grid on within model space. But it makes it so much easier for you to actually be able to work with your particular plot setups without having to manually do a lot of adjustments. So firm believer in setting up your templates with your title block and paper space, a viewport into that. And once you do that once, you really don't have to spend a lot of time in paper space. You will spend 99% of your time here in model. So great question. A bit of a controversial one because it's opinions, but I shared with you mine, and I do genuinely, my opinions are based off of trying to encourage the best success for all. So that's really where that comes from, and hopefully you find that helpful.
All right, Tiffany, we might have a follow-up question from somebody else regarding, I think, the question with Darian.
Okay.
Could we make the same thing for project code in IEC section, select multiple sheets and apply them to a new project code? I believe that may be applied to the existing.
Yeah, you absolutely could. So I think if I'm reading you right, you're actually talking about these IEC style designators under project and then installation and location codes. You absolutely can. The difference between those and what those will do is those will be then identified for that entire page. It's actually a drawing property, and it's something you can map to your title blocks. So you would be, and when you run that from an IEC style designator, it will then push that installation or location code on every single device on that drawing. So just be cautious that if you have new devices coming in there, that may not give you the same flexibility. And it may not be necessarily worth it to do that when you're trying to do the project wide thing I was suggesting on, if you want to just get everything set to existing before you start working new, just because you're going to spend more time doing that on there, and then it's going to fight a little bit with you on the new things that you want to switch the installation and location codes too, but just something to think about there if you want to utilize it. Absolutely an opportunity to do that, but just something to think about. Two different workflows. If you guys have never seen this, this is really truly for people who are, sometimes I see it used in NFPA style, but for the most part, this is for the IEC styles where they often get put up into the tag itself. So these style designators get moved into the tagging formats of the components, and they come alongside them, and what we see a lot of times in that international standard.
And then Tiffany, I think you use the Find, Edit, Replace tool on the project tab. Ron is asking where that's located.
Great question. So that is located, let me clear this. It's on your schematic tab of your panel. And then it is under, it's kind of right smack dab in the middle of edit components. And it's under what the top category that you're typically always going to see is retag. It's underneath here called Find, Edit, Replace. It's a little gem that's a bit hidden, but absolutely one of my favorite commands for some really, really great productivity enhancement for project-wide updating.
All right, and we have looks like to be a vault question. So following the electromechanical workflow, saving or working from vault, my first project went fine. My second project, when using the same components, raised a red flag upon saving to vault due to component with same file name. Okay, so duplicates basically. Electrical uses the same file names. Yeah, so Inventor and actually there's some applications that are going to have files that are the same name. Yeah, I think even civil projects even have some of the same files that are used for each individual project. So when the breaker file is seen in multiple projects, our vault flag duplicate flags duplicate file names, short of naming 63 different file names for same drawing. How do I get around flagging file name without turning that option off? That's actually a really good question as far as telling Vault not to flag that. I'm not sure if there's actually a way to do that or not. Vault is doing its job in identifying duplicates within the Vault. You're not doing anything wrong. Vault is working as intended, and Electrical is also working as intended as well. So let me follow up on that one if I can find any more information, but from what I can tell, everything's working as intended. Maybe there is a flag that we can turn off to ignore certain files or maybe a certain location, possibly. So Brian, really good question, but yeah, let me look into that one.
Perfect.
And then Hale asks, are there any forums for us new folks? So maybe following up to maybe learning areas for.
Yeah, good question, Hal. I mean, there are lots of Autodesk forums for electrical users or different things you can look at on the forum boards. There's not anything specific that I'm aware of, unless I don't know if Anton's still on, unless Anton knows of different ones that are specifically for new users. Okay.
I will post the link to a couple of resources for new users. They're not comprehensive, they're not curated, but this is the space where you can go in addition to joining these live meetups. So I will share the link with the person asking and everyone. So I will send the response to everyone.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Anton.
All right, another question. Is there a way to directly edit the BOM, not the report? Sometimes when I do a AE resequence, I don't want to renumber all the balloons, and sometimes it skips numbers.
First I'd want to know what you were doing with the resequence. So you can. So first of all, yes, you can absolutely just edit the BOM. You can do that. I would caution you on doing that since we're trying to pull live real data and we don't really want to skew those reports. We'd rather, because then every time you edit it, you would have to, if you wanted to run it again because you added new things, you'd have to manually do all those updates again, which would be not ideal. The resequencing, I'm assuming you're talking of item numbers specifically. When you do this, so you can choose how you want to process them. You can choose whether or not you want to start all over again. If you want to do this, just around specific manufacturers and how you, because if you uncheck this, you can choose like, I just want to do Allen Bradley, and Allen Bradley will start with 1, and then maybe Angster will start with 10, and Bussmann will start. You could, depending on how you want to do it, like you could change that so that you're processing it all differently. If it's not catching everything, or that, like, I'd want to dig a little bit more into what might be happening there. And why it might be skipping numbers. I'd also be curious what release you're on. So in older versions of the software, we actually had it be able to do it either per drawing or per project. I could see the per drawing causes you problems where you might have skipping or duplication, because it was allowing you to start all over again with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 on each sheet. But just like you said, that was causing a little bit of misinformation across the whole project, and that made it a little bit messy. And so we ended up wiping that out, and we don't have it on a drawing basis anymore. But to answer your specific question, you can absolutely manually edit a report. So if I were to run a bill of material, just quickly do this on this one. You can go in and this edit mode allows you to edit each line. So you can either edit the line, add an item number, add a new number from a catalog. You know, like this is a bill of material, you can add a catalog value that's not on a device within there. I mean, you can absolutely do that. You can also, once you place it, you know, for instance, if I were to put this on a drawing, or even if you send it to an Excel sheet, you could manually edit it in Excel. But if I were to put it on a drawing, the beautiful part about the way AutoCAD tables work is they work just like Excel does. So I could come in here and type what I wanted, and I could put one in here, and I could even do, you know, the drag and drop of the diamond, and I could either have it duplicate like you're seeing it say it wants to do, or I could have it increase, just like in Excel where you could have it say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So there are lots of ways to do that, but I would want to explore more how you might approach it from being able to get the data right in your drawing as opposed to manual overrides. Just a piece of advice there so that you don't have to do all that manual work. I try to get people doing the least amount of manual effort with electrical as they possibly can. It's typically the goal, is, you know, whenever I find people having to manually type anything, manually hide an attribute, add one, you know, doing a lot of really manual efforts, to me, that means something's not set up right. Perhaps your device needs to have a different setup to it. Perhaps that particular, you know, if you're always hiding location codes, let's just go into those symbols and make sure that those location codes are preset as hidden, or use layers, because all of those device pieces are pulled out, and you can just, you know, freeze that layer so that you're not seeing it, or hide that. I should say, just turn, you don't want to freeze it because you want to pull the data, but you could still turn it off. Lots of different ways to look at those things. So that's why I always try to shy away from manual efforts. But to answer your exact question, yes, you can edit it manually. But I just wanted to give you a few other tools to maybe look at, perhaps exploring getting those resequences done within the data itself.
And then Tiffany, I think this might be a follow-up to the Revit /
Okay.
electrical discussion.
Okay.
Revit
Okay.
can use the electrical conduit tray, ? So I'm not sure if maybe that was a comment to your discussion earlier.
Revit can use the electrical conduit tray. I mean, to my knowledge, unless somebody on this call knows differently than I do, and I am a Revit user as well, there is no interconnectability between Revit and AutoCAD Electrical. We connect to Inventor, but there is not a connection to Revit. The true connections to Revit come within our MEP tools. So unless somebody knows otherwise, and there's some sort of sneaky weak workaround that I'm not aware of, which is exciting. I always love learning new things. That if that is truly a question and not a comment, my answer is no. Doesn't mean you couldn't use this if you wanted to lay out conduit trays and things like that, but I think you'd be better off doing it in MEP.
All right, next question. Is electrical good to use for making PWB schematics?
Why am I blanking on that acronym right now? I'm thinking PCB, but I'm not sure what PWB is in my head. It's not. Can somebody just give me the full? I'll tell you, PCBs, just because we brought it up, is really not the intent of electrical. You could do it. We actually have a different software package within our Fusion.
Same thing, Tiffany, you said.
Oh, are they? Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
So PCBs are not, we have a package, and it was actually an acquisition we had with Eagle, if anybody's familiar with Eagle. We integrated that platform into our Fusion platform, and we actually have, it's called an electrical mechanical workflow in that as well, just like we talk about the AutoCAD Electrical and Inventor workflow, but it's really about those particular PCB boards being integrated into product design pieces, you know, the different things that you might be building within Fusion. And so I would absolutely encourage you to use the Fusion platform if you're doing PCBs or PWBs, but that's really not, that's not this space. I've seen people do it. You can. There are some electronics symbols in here and tools that you can do that with, but it's, I would say that what we have in Fusion is far better suited for that than this.
All right, next question. So how could we apply to a set of sheet the same project code description instead of filling in each one of them on the preparatory window? So
whose question is that? I need to read it. I need to see it.
this is Xavier.
Okay. How could we apply to a set of sheets the same project code description? You must be talking about the properties window. So you're talking, oh, I think, so you're talking about the IEC product codes, correct? Project codes, I think that's what he's talking about. The ones that I was showing here for this project code. So these are drawing specific settings. This is not, so just so you guys know the way these work. Drawing properties, the front tab of this is very specific to the drawing. It's what we map and paste into every single, we can paste it into every single title block that we have, but it makes it unique to that title block. There's not, that is not duplicated in the project properties. The project properties on this tab are really more about setting up your standard libraries, because that's across the entire project. And then at this level of all the rest of these, anything you see where there's a DWG icon there, that means that at the drawing level, you can change this. So you can make the whole project mostly this format, but maybe one drawing needs a slightly different format. Anything that has this little project folder look to it means that can only be changed at the project level. So those are settings that go across the whole thing. There is not the duplication of that though, because we typically see something different drawing by drawing on those project codes. Now, my advice to you is the one kind of get around it if you wanted it. There's two things. You could fill it out in one drawing property, and then you could single select, or you should shift select, I should say, all of your other drawings. Why am I not getting my shift select right now? And you can go into your properties and you can say apply. Oh, even that I can't. Hang on, it's because I didn't copy it. Here we go. If I were to say copy, there we go. That was what I was expecting. Like, why was it grayed out? If you were to come in here and then you say paste, you could paste that one drawings properties into all of them so that it would get that project code on it. Obviously, you guys can see that's also how you could apply project defaults. If you change the main project defaults after the drawings have occurred, you could change all of them. But in this case, what you're asking only comes from the drawing property. So you would need to do that copy paste. That's one workaround. The second workaround is if you don't care about it living on the drawing properties, if it's not something you're trying to have actually use the IEC designators as something that's going to be up on any of your devices, and really you just want it there so that you can list that at a title block level of what the project code is, what you could do is make that one of your descriptions here that we also link these to the title block. And these are the things that are project wide: the title, the job number, the date, engineer, and so on. You could make the next one that project code. And if you guys have never seen this, there's a file called the Dwt Title File that runs all of this, along with other files that we have that help link all these things up that include being able to change those from saying line 1, line 2, line 3 to actually being specific to whatever your attribute titles are. And that would allow you to change this to saying project code, and then you could do it here, and then you could have that fill out in your title block that code. But again, I don't know what your use case is. If you're trying to have it consumed by the software to use those codes truly in the device ID information, then you need to just do what I was showing, where you fill it out in one and then just copy paste it into all the other ones that apply. And that would be my advice.
All right. Question from Alexander. Panel report tool won't bring over description or user to field, which I'm using for an internal part number for certain parts, even though info exists in catalog browser and device and project is tied to catalog browser info. What am I doing wrong?
Okay, I think I understand your question, and let's bear with me for a second while I map this out for you. So if you're in the bill of material and you were to run a project on it, and you want the description text as well as the user field, let me show you something. So by default, and this is where you do it from, this change report format. If you go in here and you look at this, these are the default items, and you can see I've changed this to device ID. This was just to show in another meeting, and it obviously sticks, what the tag that you can change around the names of these things. So this overarching description section actually includes all of these things, which includes that descript message that your field that you're talking about, as well as the user 1 and user 2 fields. Now, I have already moved user 1 up in here. But what you can do if you wanted to be able to make user 2 an actual field to report, like it actually becomes its own column, you click on it and it becomes in here, and then you can move this up wherever you want it. So you could say move up or move down to have that be a part of this. Now, the other section of this would be, and by the way, then it will not show up under this greater heading of description anymore, even though it's check marked, because it's now been pulled out to be its own thing. So any of those user fields, you just pull them in and utilize them however you need them. And that is that. So hopefully that answered your question.
All right, good. From Jeffrey, can we duplicate a parametric PLC and rename it?
Can you duplicate it? Yeah, do you mean can you copy and paste it as another device? Like, can you use the copy device? I think that's your question. You can, like if I wanted to copy, if I wanted to copy this and paste it elsewhere, I mean, you can absolutely use a copy component and move it over, and then it will automatically launch you to rename it. I would also challenge you that reinserting it would be quite easy too, because it'll parametrically build it however you need it. But absolutely, you just use that copy component. And then, I mean, perhaps you're trying to preserve all of the text you fill in the five description areas on it, which you don't get whenever you insert it again fresh. Absolutely, you can use copy component. Yep.
All right, we have a request from Michelle. Please do make the tips available.
Okay, so, this file that, yep, okay.
Yep,
I will I will share this to you, Anton, and perhaps we can get that out to the full user team on this particular file. I actually built it in AutoCAD, so you'll be getting well, but I'll just share the PDF version of it so you don't get all the mess of it. But yeah, you'll appreciate this. This is a text file that you think could be done in Word, but I actually found it easier to lay out in AutoCAD. So a little fun fact there.
Yeah, we have just some kind of general comments.
Okay.
Yeah, other people would like to see the cheat sheet as well.
Okay.
We see your email, Otis. Paper space rules.
Woo, good.
Yeah. Go model space. So it looks like we got a little bit of.
Oh, there's a little battle. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Okay. Craig Smith asked questions, a little bit longer one. Tiffany, you want me to read it, or do you want to go through it?
Feel free to read it. I'm trying to find actually where you are right now. So yeah.
Okay.
Feel free to read it.
So why doesn't the WD_tag ALT attribute not copy from the electrical components to the footprints and pneumatic diagrams? We use this for the customer field device PID tag. We add the attribute to our footprints and pneumatic devices so that they can display to correlate the panel devices to their PIDs.
Yep, which is perfect. That's exactly what the tag alternate ID is for. So if you guys have never ever seen that, that's actually how we do peer-to-peer devices. So for anybody else on here that doesn't know this, in our what ships with the software, we also ship with pneumatic, hydraulic, and P&ID components. So those attributes are there to help you link between the standard schematic versions of those devices and then their pure components within either pneumatic, hydraulic, or P&ID. Let me read it again. So why doesn't it copy from to the footprints? So here's the thing. Many of our attributes don't copy into our footprints. Footprints actually have less attributes on them in most cases because we don't often want to see all of those things. We're already showing them in the schematics. However, all of the information maps in Xdata. So where if you were to open up the find or the insert component dialog box that also has insert edit, and you would be able to see all the information on the footprint or the schematic, all of that information should live in there because that information is there in Xdata transfer, but we're not necessarily showing all of it on screen. And that's why. Now, if you wanted to see it, you would just need to actually insert into those devices that you're inserting in your panel that actual attribute to exist on it so that you can see it visually on screen. If you don't care about seeing it, but you just want the data to transfer between all of them and have them be connected, that's happening. That's the whole gist of all that interconnected workflow between them. It's why our schematics and panels are linked to each other, and it's why you can link the footprints to those, as well, in that full three-way connection between the peer devices, the schematics, and the panel. So those do all exist. They're there in Xdata. They're just, if you want to be able to see it, you're going to have to add that attribute for it to actually map it to it. If you need to see it literally physically on your screen, I hope that makes sense.
All right. We have just about 5 minutes left.
Yep.
Time for maybe a couple more questions here. So,
okay.
Hello, new guy here. Is there a way to set up in drawing property sheet value drawing to pick up the name of the drawing and on sheet value sheet last digit of name of the drawing? You might need to read that one, Tiffany.
Yeah, and I just found it. Yeah. Is there a way to set up in a drawing properties the sheet value / drawing to pick up the name of the drawing and the sheet value last digit of the name of the drawing? So I'm not sure, I don't know where you want to be able to map that data to. The answer is yes, but to a specific area. So I'm not sure where exactly you're hoping to use that. But if you look at any of these drawing properties, this is where you can put description text of that. Obviously, it knows the file name by what exists in here. You can have up to 3 descriptions. Obviously, we've already talked about the IEC codes, and you can have your sheet number. You can even have drawing numbers. You can even utilize these sections and subsections, which used to be a way to filter until we were able to give folder structure into these. Folders is not Windows folders or folders within Vault or any other data. This is truly just organization of your drawings within your project so that you could run, like, I want to run a project-wide command on just everything in my schematic folder or just everything in my panel. Before we had that ability to do that, we only had the section and subsection, and that was kind of a way around that, just to explain all of these fields. So back to your question, if you wanted to map like a sheet number and the drawing name or a description of the drawing to, typically what we want to map them to is to title blocks or even into reports. All of those things can be done. That's the beauty of filling that out. So whenever we run a title block update, you'll actually see that I can use all of my drawing, any of those fields within my drawings, and have those. As long as I have already done my initial setup of mapping my title block, so mapping all of my attributes in my title block to all these descriptors, as soon as I run this update, it will just automatically fill out all of those attributes. There are other reports that utilize these too, though. If you were to right-click on your project and use the drawing list report, which will create basically your index sheet. You can even map in here as it goes. So there are other things you can actually map into this. You can see this includes file name, the date and time, and drawing descriptions, the sheet numbers, and then that first line of drawing description as well. So this maps all of that information into it as well. So hoping that helps you and answers your question. I'm not sure if you're looking to map that elsewhere. One other comment is if you wanted to use the sheet to be mapped into your components or your wire numbers, that would be the %S designator. And %D does this drawing one. So this one you can make whatever you want, and that will be filled out by using the %D. So a lot of different options there, a lot of things. Wasn't sure if I fully captured your question, but hopefully all those different things covered it in some capacity. So.
All right, I think we might have time for just one more.
Maybe, yeah. I just watched the time flip over by 1 minute,
Yep.
But yeah, let's do maybe one more if it's a short one.
Yeah, this almost might be a duplicate question. How can we fill project code description on several sheets? I think you answered that.
I think exactly.
Yep. What class is best to use model and paperspace with formats in paperspace?
Where is that one? What was the question?
From Benjamin Flores.
What class is best to use model and paperspace? It's for taking a class, you mean? There's a lot out there on understanding how to set up model space and paper space. There is nothing AutoCAD Electrical specific about that setup. So feel free to look. I would look at AU classes for best practices on how to utilize model and paper space. There's lots of them out there that I'm sure there's tons of forum work on that as well. Lots of good stuff with it. It's easy. It's a less than an hour lesson. It's probably 30 minutes of time to just go through it, understand it, and build it yourself. I mean, it's probably even faster than that. But I know I used to in my grader classes, I used to teach that as like the last hour of my template building time. It was not a heavy lift, so that should be a pretty easy class to search for and then get that going if you guys are looking for it. And with that, we are out of time. I'm going to add this just for a little fun anecdote. This was a great way for me to be able to spend my birthday. So thank you guys for joining me, all of your great questions, and exciting to, it was funny to see it land, this particular webinar land on my birthday. So thank you all, and always great to talk to you, and look forward to talking to you in August.
Yeah, thank you, Tiffany. Great job.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Tiffany. Happy
Thanks, Matt.
birthday.
Thank you. Thanks, you guys, for all of your help always.
And everyone's wishing you a happy birthday now. So.
Oh, well, thank you. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
All right. Bye.